The day the skies turned crimson and shimmering alien warships descended over Earth, humanity held its breath. These ships were colossal, like glittering citadels etched with intricate designs, hovering ominously above cities. An announcement boomed across all channels in perfect synchronization, delivered by a voice that was as commanding as it was ethereal. We are the Zyrarian. The galaxy demands strength and worthiness to join the Alliance. Earth's fate will now be tested. Among this mighty warrior race was High General Alindra Lux, a figure of utter confidence and authority. Crowned with silver hair that seemed to glow under the sunlight and wearing armor so advanced it seemed alive, she strode forward in an imposing column of Zyrarian soldiers, all female, their spears humming with an unseen energy. Her piercing violet eyes scanned the terrified crowd that had been rounded up in a central plaza, a mix of awe, fear, and helplessness reflected in every face. Every face, except one. James Braxton stood defiantly amidst the trembling people. He wasn't hidden behind the safety of the others or shifting uneasily like they were. Instead, his broad shoulders were squared, his tall frame towering over most of the crowd. There was no fear in his steel-gray eyes, just determination as they locked onto Alindra's. James Braxton was no stranger to impossible odds, a former special operations commander with a reputation for leading his team through missions deemed suicidal by others. He was a man forged in the fires of battle. Years of grueling combat across deserts, jungles, and urban wastelands had shaped him into more than just a soldier. They had made him a warrior in every sense of the word. His presence radiated strength, not merely from his athletic build, but from the collected, unshakable confidence that came with surviving the worst humanity had to offer. Yet it wasn't just physical prowess that made James a force to be reckoned with. His mind was just as formidable. Tactical genius, strategic insight, and the willpower to see his plans through had earned him the nickname Iron Shadow on the battlefield. His hands bore countless scars, his body a testament to the violence he had endured and dealt, but none of it had broken him. Here, in the face of an alien threat unlike anything he'd faced before, James stood as if daring them to try their worst. For all their technological supremacy, the Zyrarians had finally encountered someone who carried his own unyielding aura of authority. High General Alindra Lux's eyes lingered on him, a flicker of recognition sparking within her cool, calculating gaze. Her step faltered. This man wasn't the quaking specimen Alindra had anticipated from this inefficient species. No, James radiated the raw energy of someone who met challenges head-on, an aura that matched, if not rivaled, her own. The High General of the Zerarian hesitated for the first time. "You there!" she commanded, her voice echoing through the silent expanse. She raised a gloved hand, every inch of her movements graceful but threatening. "Step forward, human. You have no fear in your eyes." James stepped forward with unyielding confidence, his gaze never leaving hers. "Fear is not how you win battles, or how you earn respect," he said, voice calm yet firm. The spark of challenge ignited something unfamiliar in Alindra, something even her rigorous training and authority couldn't suppress. Intrigued and maybe even impressed, she tilted her head, an amused smirk playing at her lips. "What are your qualifications to even address a high general?" she asked mockingly. Yet there was an edge to her question that spoke of genuine curiosity. "I don't need qualifications to call out bullies," he replied with the smallest smirk. Elindra's violet eyes narrowed as an undeniable thrill coursed through her. "Would you fight for your world, warrior?" Her voice lowered, inviting and dangerous. Without hesitation, James stepped closer. "Would you?" The Zyrarian guards gasped. No one spoke to Alindra Lux like this. Yet she didn't seem angered. She seemed entertained. "A duel, then," she declared, her booming voice captivating the crowd. Their murmurs grew louder, but the warrior general silenced them with an elegant raise of her hand. She turned to James. "You versus me? No armies, no weapons but our fists. If you defeat me, Earth lives free. If I win, your planet will answer to Zyrarian rule. Do we have an accord?" James nodded. "Deal." The duel was like nothing Earth had witnessed. an arena quickly erected by the Zerarians using shimmering alien technology. Elindra's every movement was a symphony of grace and power, her strength catching James off guard more than once. But James wasn't just strong, he was clever. He studied her movements, learning her rhythm, adapting and countering when least expected. Blow after blow, it was clear the two were evenly matched, and the disciplined facade she wore began to crack. Elindra couldn't help the rush of emotions that rose in her. Frustration, admiration, curiosity, and warmth. Every strike exchange felt like a conversation, every counter a challenge that built understanding. It was a battlefield, yet somehow it felt intimate. For James, it wasn't just a fight anymore either. The fierce alien warrior general wasn't just an adversary, she was someone driven by values, strength, and surprisingly, honor. At last, both breathing heavily, marks of the duel gleaming on their skin and armor, a pause lingered in the air. "You're skilled," she said softly, stepping back slightly but maintaining her guard. "So are you," James replied, wiping blood from his lip. She tilted her head, a faint smile gracing her features. "Perhaps we are not so different after all." There was a moment of silence charged with an unspoken connection that defied words. Then Alindra turned to the assembled Zerarian army. "Earth has proven its worth. They will not be conquered." The crowd erupted in cheers behind James, but his gaze remained locked on Alindra. "That was quick. What changed your mind?" "Perhaps," she spoke just for him now, her smile growing warmer. "Earth has more to teach the galaxy than we assumed." A pause then, just loud enough for him to hear alone. "Or perhaps I found something worth protecting myself." James frowned. "Or someone?" Elindra chuckled, a rare and genuine sound before turning to leave with her troops. But just as she stepped aboard her ship, she glanced back at him one last time, her violet eyes now softer. "Until we meet again, human James." James watched as the alien ships ascended and vanished into the sky. He couldn't help the small smile tugging at his lips. "Until next time, Elindra." And with that, the echoes of the first human-alien alliance cemented itself in history, and perhaps in the hearts of its strongest defenders. The days that followed felt surreal. The battlefields that once roared with chaos were now quiet, save for the whispers of rebuilding efforts. James found himself wandering through the remnants of what could easily have been humanity's final stand. A lingering hum of Alindra's words spiraling in his thoughts. The Alliance Council summoned him mere days after the Zerarian retreat, seeking a detailed account of the confrontation, and more intriguingly, the enigmatic commander who had so easily shifted from adversary to ally. "They admire strength," James explained, standing before a packed room of politicians, generals, and ambassadors. "But it's more than that. She saw something in us, something unexpected." "Unexpected how?" one of the counselors inquired sharply. James paused, thinking back to the way Alindra's gaze had softened, how her smile had turned from calculating to something almost tender. "Humanity's resilience," he replied carefully, "and maybe our capacity for hope." The room whispered in murmurs of debate, but James's mind was already elsewhere. What exactly had happened in those final moments? Elindra had offered an olive branch, yes, but hidden within her words had been something personal. Something tethered not just to Earth, but to him. The thought both thrilled and unsettled him. Later that night, as James sat alone on the balcony of the now rebuilt Alliance Watchtower, he stared into the vastness of the stars. Somewhere out there, Elindra was aboard her ship, recalibrating her next move. Was the promise of "until we meet again" a genuine overture, or merely the musings of a commander straddling two worlds? Above all, he couldn't ignore a nagging feeling deep within, an instinct that told him this was just the beginning. Perhaps the galaxy wasn't done testing Earth's worth, and maybe James's connection with Elindra would be the key to navigating the tides of uncertainty. A soft chime from his communicator interrupted the stillness. James glanced at the screen, expecting another routine dispatch, but instead, a symbol he hadn't seen in months flickered to life. A silver crest entwined with alien script. His breath hitched. It was Elindra's insignia. He hesitated for a moment, fingers hovering above the device, before finally swiping to open the encrypted message. The holographic interface blossomed in front of him, displaying a brief but strikingly personal transmission. James, her voice purred smoothly, as though she wasn't speaking from light years away. I trust this message reaches you under calm skies. I've been considering the enigma of your people. The strength and hope you embody is not something easily replicated. It is both your greatest gift and, I suspect, your greatest test. Her gaze seemed to meet his through the projection, piercing and unreadable. Events are unfolding, ones that will determine not just the fate of Earth, but many worlds. Alliances will be forged, broken, and reforged again. If Earth wishes to truly stand among the stars, you will need perspective, partnership. You will need me, James. She paused as if weighing her next words. I cannot guarantee we'll be on the same side when the time comes. But I can tell you this. Your choices matter more than you know. I'll be watching. And just like that, the transmission ended, leaving nothing but silence and the faint hum of the watchtower's infrastructure. James sat back, gripping the edge of the cold metal chair, his mind racing. The cryptic nature of her message was hardly surprising, but the weight behind it lingered, burrowing into his thoughts. For the first time in years, he felt small, not in defeat, but in the vastness of what lay ahead. The galaxy was larger than he had imagined, and the threads of fate seemed to be tightening around him. One thing was clear, though. He wouldn't stand idly by. If Alindra's words were any indication, the storm was coming, and James was determined to be ready. The watchtower's dim lights buzzed faintly, casting long shadows across the chamber. James exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair as he rose from the chair. The memory of Alindra's piercing gaze lingered, an unshakable imprint on his mind. He stepped closer to the panoramic window that lined the watchtower's wall, the vast expanse of space unfolding before him. Stars flickered like ancient sentinels, their cold light a reminder of how much was still unknown, and how much was at stake. He closed his eyes, letting the silence envelop him. It wasn't just her words that echoed within him. It was the certainty, the undercurrent of inevitability, perspective, partnership, choices. These weren't just idle suggestions. They were a challenge, a test of Earth's resolve. For years, humanity had struggled to claim its place among the stars, clawing upward with grit and tenacity. But now it seemed the universe demanded more. The faint chirp of the comms console snapped James out of his thoughts. A second transmission? No, it was a routine alert. A supply ship requesting docking clearance. James hesitated, his hand hovering over the controls. Every decision, no matter how small, felt heavier now. Was this how it would be from now on? A constant second-guessing of motives and consequences? He pushed the thought aside and managed the clearance, his fingers moving on autopilot. Despite the mundane task, his mind churned with possibilities. If Elindra's warning was true, then every interaction could carry unseen implications. This wasn't just about Earth anymore. It was about alliances, survival, and the course of history itself. James turned from the console, his jaw set in determination. The vastness of space no longer intimidated him. It ignited something within. Whatever storm was coming, he would face it head-on. After all, the weight of the galaxy wasn't meant to crush him, it was meant to forge him, and he was ready to rise to the challenge. He strode out of the command center, his mind teeming with plans and preparations. He would gather intel, form alliances, and strategize every move. Earth may have been caught off guard this time, but they wouldn't be again. James grinned as he stepped into the bustling halls of the space station. Let them underestimate us. We'll show them what humanity is truly capable of. The thought fueled him as he made his way to the meeting room, where Elindra awaited. As much as her words had shaken him, they also sparked something within. The thrill of exploring new frontiers, facing unknown dangers, and forging a path for humanity. The doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing Elindra standing by the observation window. The glow of distant stars cast a serene light on her features, but her eyes were sharp, carrying the weight of countless battles fought and futures envisioned. James felt his breath catch for a moment. How could someone exude such strength and grace all at once? He stepped into the room, clearing his throat to mask the sudden, unexpected rush of nerves. "You're late," Alindra said, a teasing smile tugging at her lips. Though her tone was light, there was a warmth in her gaze that James hadn't noticed before. "Had to make an entrance," he quipped, leaning casually against the nearest console, though his heart pounded like a war drum in his chest. For someone who had stared down alien fleets with unwavering courage, this newfound flutter of emotion felt strangely disarming. For what felt like an eternity, but must have only been seconds, their eyes met, and the air in the room shifted. It was as though the galaxy itself paused to acknowledge the spark that leapt between them, the kind of connection that defied logic and resonated deep in the soul. Elindra's guarded demeanor softened, and James saw something new in her expression, a vulnerability wrapped in fire, a reflection of his own fears and hopes. Neither said a word, but the moment held more promise than any speech could. Here in the vastness of space, amidst looming threats and endless uncertainty, something unexpected was growing, something worth fighting for. The moment was abruptly interrupted by the piercing wail of the ship's alert system. James straightened instantly, his casual demeanor replaced by the sharp focus of a seasoned captain. Elindra's hand instinctively moved to her holster, her momentary softness replaced by the fierce resolve he had come to respect. "Unidentified vessel entering our sector." The AI's calm, precise voice cut through the tension. A holographic display flared to life, projecting a ship design neither of them recognized. It was angular and dark, exuding an ominous energy that made James's stomach twist. "That's no friendly visitor," Alindra muttered, her eyes narrowing as she studied the craft's jagged silhouette. Before James could reply, the vessel initiated a broadcast, its transmission overriding their systems. The voice that followed was cold and mechanical, dripping with menace. "Attention occupants of the Meridian Star, surrender immediately. Resistance will result in annihilation." James clenched his fists, his mind racing. Whoever, or whatever they were dealing with, didn't come in peace. This was a threat like they hadn't faced before, unknown and unpredictable. Out here in the void, there was no room for error. They weren't just fighting for their lives. They were fighting for hope, for the fragile bond that had only just begun to form. Elindra's gaze flicked to James, her eyes fierce and unrelenting. "What's the plan, Captain?" she asked, her voice steady despite the chaos unraveling around them. James exhaled slowly, forcing his pulse to settle. "We don't back down," he said, his voice carrying that same unyielding resolve that had seen him through countless scrapes before. His words were met with a sharp nod from Alindra, her steadfast loyalty a rare constant in an otherwise unpredictable universe. The Meridian Star shuddered as the mysterious vessel powered up its weapon systems, the tension within the control deck thick enough to choke on. The AI was already processing possible maneuvers, flashing trajectories and countermeasures onto the holographic screen. But James knew it wouldn't be enough without a stroke of ingenuity. "Elindra, get to the weapons array. I need you razor sharp on targeting," he barked, already configuring the ship's power reserves to bolster their shields. She didn't hesitate, sprinting toward the exit, her movements fluid and confident. "AI, try to jam their communications," James commanded. If this ship had allies waiting in the wings, the last thing they needed was reinforcements converging on them. The AI's acknowledgement came swiftly, and he watched as lines of code rapidly appeared on the display, their automated systems working to disrupt the enemy's transmissions. The room seemed to hum with a crackling energy as James strapped himself into the captain's chair, the weight of leadership pressing firmly on his shoulders. Despite it all, a small flicker of determination burned inside him. He would not allow fear to slip through. This was his crew, his ship, and his fight. The enemy vessel loomed larger on the screen as they closed the gap between them, its dark hull glinting with an eerie light. James tightened his grip on the controls. "All right, Meridian Star," he muttered, half to himself and half to the ship. "Time to show them what you're made of." The first barrage came in the form of a searing plasma beam, cutting through the void like a blade of molten fire. The Meridian Star jolted violently as the shields absorbed the impact, warning alarms screaming through the control deck. James clenched his jaw, his hands flying across the interface to stabilize the ship. Elindra, status! He barked into the comms. Targeting systems online. Her voice crackled back, steady and fierce. Give me an opening, Captain, and I'll make it count. James nodded, his mind racing. AI, reroute auxiliary power to thrusters. We're going evasive. Plot me a course to circle behind them, tight and fast. Acknowledged, the AI responded, and almost instantly the ship surged forward, veering sharply as the thrusters roared to life. The enemy vessel opened fire again, a barrage of glowing projectiles lighting up the darkness. But this time the Meridian star danced through the chaos, weaving between the destruction like a phantom. Now! James shouted as they broke into the enemy's blind spot. Elindra, take the shot! The deck trembled underfoot as the weapons array powered up, a ferocious hum resonating through the ship. Seconds later, a dazzling bolt burst forth, hurtling toward the enemy with unerring precision. The hostile vessel shuddered under the impact, its shields flickering like a dying star. A brief cheer erupted through the control deck, but James silenced it with a raised hand. It's not over yet, he warned, his eyes locked on the monitors. The enemy was wounded, yes, but their weapon systems were still operational. He adjusted his grip on the controls, his voice steady but electric with resolve. Brace yourselves, everyone. They're not going down without a fight. With a final surge of determination, they strike at the heart of the vessel, its imposing frame quivering under the weight of their united efforts. Sparks ignite, shadows twist, and a deafening roar fills the air as the mighty structure begins to collapse. Victory is theirs, a triumph against the odds, a testament to their courage and unwavering resolve. The vessel, once an indomitable force, is now a smoldering ruin, marking the end of a fierce battle and the dawn of a new hope. The crew of the Meridian Star slumped into their seats, exhaustion etched across their faces, yet their spirits lifted by the taste of hard-won victory. The stars outside seemed to shimmer brighter, as if celebrating their triumph alongside them. Elindra reclined in her chair, letting out a heavy sigh, her usual stoic demeanor giving way to a rare, gentle smile. Good work, everyone, James said, his voice softer now, yet still carrying the authority of a leader who had earned their respect 100-fold. He surveyed the crew, each of them carrying the scars of the battle, some visible, some not, but alive and together. The communication console suddenly flickered to life, and a garbled transmission came through. Jenna, the communications officer, leaned forward, adjusting the frequency until the static cleared. This is the Free Haven Resistance, a voice declared, firm yet pleading. Are you receiving us, Meridian Star? We need your help. James straightened, the exhaustion momentarily vanishing from his eyes. The room held its breath, the weight of the plea settling over them. The battle was over, but their mission was far from complete. Ellie, what's the status of our systems? He asked, turning to Elindra. Shields are holding. Weapons at 50%, she replied, her fingers flying over the console. We've seen worse. James allowed himself a small, determined grin. Then set a course, he said. We didn't come this far to stand by and watch. Let's remind the galaxy what hope looks like. The engines thrummed to life once more, and the Meridian Star sailed forward into the endless expanse, carrying its crew toward a new chapter of their daring adventure. United once more, they stood side by side, their shared resolve shining brighter than ever. The Alliance welcomed their return with open arms, the air buzzing with excitement and hope. Together, they brought renewed strength and boundless determination, ready to face any challenge that lay ahead. Their bond, forged through trials and triumphs, became an unshakable foundation for the future they aspired to build together. Months later, their love story became the stuff of intergalactic legends. Against sprawling nebulae and twinkling starfields, they stood hand in hand, uniting not only their hearts, but the hopes of their entire species. The wedding was an extraordinary spectacle. Two beings from different worlds joined together under a luminous cascade of cosmic stardust. Their bond symbolized a future where diversity across the galaxies flourished, and their love became a beacon of possibility. Together, they ventured into the vast unknown, building a future filled with shared dreams, exploration, and unity that transcended the stars.